Chapter 1. The man who stopped answering doors. Sam Jacobs didn't hate people. That was a common misunderstanding. Hatred required effort. Hatred required emotional investment. Most people simply exhausted him. At 37 years old, Sam had perfected the art of being left alone. He woke up at 5 every morning, drank the same coffee from the same chipped mug, worked his shift at the factory, came home, microwaved dinner, watched whatever happened to be on television, and went to bed. Tomorrow would be exactly the same. That predictability wasn't depressing. It was comforting. Life had taught him that surprises usually arrived carrying bad news. On Saturday morning, he stood in his kitchen staring suspiciously at his phone. The thing wouldn't stop vibrating. For the third time in 10 minutes, his younger sister Emily was calling. Sam let it ring. It stopped, then immediately started again. He sighed. Persistent little gremlin. The phone continued vibrating across the countertop. Eventually self-preservation lost to annoyance. He answered. What? Good morning to you too, Emily said. Something on fire? No. Someone dead? No. Then text me. You never answer texts. Exactly. Emily made a frustrated noise. Mom's barbecue is today. Sam closed his eyes. There it was. The trap. No. I didn't ask a question. My answer is still no. You're coming. I'm not. You are. I'm definitely not. Mom already made enough food for 30 people. That's her mistake. It's a family gathering. I saw everybody at Christmas. It is August. Still counts. Emily groaned dramatically. Sam leaned against the counter, already regretting answering. 10 years ago, he'd been the easygoing one, the social one, the guy who hosted game nights and neighborhood cookouts. Now conversations felt like chores that reproduced faster than he could finish them. Listen, Emily said, softening her tone. Mom misses you. I saw her last month. For 20 minutes. That was plenty. You stayed long enough to fix her garbage disposal. Problem solved. Sam. He recognized the warning in her voice. It usually meant she was about to weaponize guilt. Few people did it better. Mom worries. About what? You. He snorted. I'm literally the most predictable person in Pennsylvania. That's exactly the problem. Sam rubbed his forehead. This conversation wasn't going anywhere pleasant. I'm fine. No, you aren't. I'm employed. That's not the same thing. I pay my bills. Still not the same thing. The grass is cut. Emily laughed despite herself. Congratulations. You're functioning lawn care. High praise. There was a pause. When Emily spoke again, her voice carried genuine concern. You know people miss you, right? Sam stared out the kitchen window. His backyard looked neat enough. Not beautiful. Not ugly. Just maintained. Like everything else he owned. People move on, he said. Not family. They should. They won't. The simple certainty in her answer made something uncomfortable shift in his chest. Sam changed the subject immediately. What time is this barbecue? Emily sounded so surprised he almost smiled. You're coming. I'm considering appearing long enough to verify everyone is alive. 2 o'clock. I'll stay an hour. 3. 1. 2. Fine. She cheered triumphantly. You are way too excited. Because we haven't seen you voluntarily attend anything since dinosaurs roamed the earth. It's been less than a decade. Barely. They exchanged a few more words before hanging up. Silence returned to the house. Sam preferred it immediately. Unfortunately, once the commitment existed, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Family gatherings meant questions. Questions meant conversations. Conversations meant people trying to fix him. Everyone believed he needed fixing. Nobody seemed willing to accept that maybe this was simply who he had become. By 2 o'clock, he was parked outside his parents' house. Children ran through the yard. Adults stood around folding tables. Laughter drifted through the summer air. The sight should have felt familiar. Instead, it felt like watching someone else's life. His mother spotted him immediately. Of course she did. Samuel. Before he could escape, she wrapped him in a hug. His father appeared moments later carrying a plate piled with hamburgers. You look skinny. I weigh exactly what I weighed last month. Still skinny. His mother rolled her eyes. Get food. I'm not staying long. Sure, she said. That tone meant she wasn't listening. Over the next hour, Sam endured a parade of relatives asking identical questions. How's work? You doing okay? You seeing anybody? His answers became increasingly shorter. No, fine, no. At one point, an elderly aunt attempted to introduce him to the divorced daughter of a church friend. Sam escaped by volunteering to haul coolers. Unfortunately, Emily found him. She appeared beside him carrying a soda. You've been hiding. I've been working. You carried one cooler. It was heavy. It had ice. I rest my case. Emily laughed. You know, if you'd actually talk to people, they might stop interrogating you. Or they'd discover how boring I am. Coward. Realist. She studied him for a moment. Then her expression softened. You don't have to spend the rest of your life alone. The familiar ache appeared. Not sharp anymore. Just old. Persistent. like bad weather in a knee injury. Sam looked away. The yard buzzed with conversation. Families, couples, children, a future he'd once assumed would belong to him. It's not about being alone, he said quietly. Emily didn't answer, because both of them knew that was only partly true. Trust was the real problem. Trust had a cost. He'd paid it once. The bill had nearly ruined him. After a few moments he forced a smile. Relax. I'm not becoming a supervillain. That's reassuring. I don't have the wardrobe for it. She laughed. He was pleased to discover he still remembered how to make people laugh, even if only occasionally. As the afternoon continued, something unexpected happened. He found himself staying. Not because he wanted to talk. Not because he'd suddenly become social. But because watching people enjoy themselves didn't hurt quite as much as it used to. Maybe time had accomplished something after all. By the time he finally headed home, the sun was beginning to set. His mother hugged him again. His father handed him leftover food. Emily demanded he answer at least one future phone call. Sam promised nothing. Driving back through town, he noticed lights and windows. People gathering for dinner. Lives moving forward. For years he'd looked at scenes like that and felt excluded. Tonight the feeling was different. Not better, just different. As he pulled into his driveway, he found himself wondering when exactly survival had become the same thing as living. It was an uncomfortable question. One he had no intention of answering. Unfortunately for Sam Jacobs, his life was about to become much harder to ignore. Chapter 2. The road home. Brenda Jacobs loved highways. At least she used to. There had been a time when long stretches of asphalt represented possibility. New opportunities. Promotions. Bigger cities. Better careers. The future. Now they mostly gave her too much time to think. She adjusted her grip on the steering wheel and glanced at the navigation screen. 1 hour and 19 minutes remaining. Home. Not her apartment in Harrisburg. Not the condominium she'd purchased after her latest promotion. Home. The small town she'd spent most of her life trying to leave and half her life quietly missing afterward. The radio played softly in the background, but she wasn't paying attention. Her thoughts had wandered into familiar territory. They always did during long drives. Sam. Not constantly anymore. It had once been constant. In the weeks after the divorce, there had been mornings where she'd woken up reaching for a phone to call him before remembering she no longer had the right. Years had dulled the immediacy of the pain. They had not erased it. She doubted they ever would. Brenda had spent a decade becoming successful. Her title sounded impressive. Her salary was impressive. Her retirement account was impressive. Her LinkedIn profile was probably downright inspirational. None of it had worked nearly as well as she'd hoped when it came to making her happy. Career success turned out to be surprisingly poor company. As the town limit sign appeared ahead, she felt some of the familiar tension settle into her shoulders. Every visit was slightly uncomfortable. Every visit included memories she'd rather avoid. She passed the diner where she and Sam had spent countless evenings sharing fries because they couldn't afford separate meals. The hardware store where they'd bought paint for their first house. The little grocery store where they once argued for 20 minutes over whether generic cereal actually tasted different than the name brand. The answer, obviously, had been yes. Sam had been wrong. Her lips twitched despite herself. 10 years later, she could still remember his dramatic defense of discount cereal. She turned onto another street, then frowned. This wasn't her normal route. She'd been distracted. The realization came a second too late. Her stomach dropped. No. The word escaped before she realized she'd spoken. She knew the street. She knew every house on it. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel. No. She hadn't meant to come this way. For a brief moment she considered turning around. Then she saw it. Their old house. And the world seemed to stop. The house wasn't falling apart. The roof looked fine. The paint wasn't peeling. The lawn was cut. But something about it felt wrong. Brenda slowed instinctively. The flower beds were empty. The shutters needed washing. The porch looked bare. Everything appeared functional. Maintained. Alive only in the most technical sense. Her chest tightened painfully. When she'd lived there, the property had been bright. Sam had planted flowers because she liked them. He'd installed solar lights along the walkway because she thought they looked nice. There had always been color somewhere. Something growing. Something welcoming. Now it looked like a place where someone existed rather than lived. A house surviving the passage of time. A house waiting for nothing. Brenda stared as she drove past. Oh, Sam. The words barely made it out. She kept driving. The house disappeared in her rearview mirror. Her eyes burned. By the time she reached her parents' driveway, tears had already begun forming. She hastily wiped them away. Get it together. You haven't even gotten out of the car. She sat there for a moment before forcing herself to move. The front door opened before she'd reached the porch. Her mother smiled. There she is. Brenda managed a smile of her own. Hi, Mom. A hug followed. Then another from her father. Questions about the drive. Comments about the weather. Normal family conversation. Brenda answered automatically while the image of that house refused to leave her head. Dinner came and went. The evening settled comfortably around the family home. Eventually they gathered in the living room. Her mother watched television. Her father pretended to watch television. Brenda sat on the couch trying unsuccessfully to think about anything else. Finally she gave up. What happened to Sam? The room instantly went quiet. Her mother lowered the remote. Her father looked away. Neither response was encouraging. Brenda's heartbeat accelerated. What happened? Her mother exchanged a glance with her father. Brenda! No! She leaned forward. Please don't do that. Do what? Protect me. Nobody spoke. The silence itself was answer enough. Brenda felt dread building. Just tell me. Her father sighed. We don't know everything. Tell me what you do know. Another glance passed between her parents. Then her father spoke. After the divorce. He paused. As best anyone could tell, he just stopped. Brenda swallowed hard. What does that mean? He stopped visiting people. Her mother took over. Stopped going places. Stopped answering invitations. He still saw family, right? Brenda asked. Her father looked uncomfortable. Something cold settled in her stomach. Her mother continued softly. People tried for years. What people? Everyone. The answer came immediately. Friends. Family. Neighbors. Brenda stared. He wouldn't talk to them? He'd talk if he had to. Her mother hesitated. But eventually most people gave up trying. Brenda couldn't breathe properly. What about dating? Neither parent answered. The silence stretched. Oh God. Her father rubbed the back of his neck. Not that anyone knows of. 10 years. 10 years. The number echoed painfully inside her head. That's impossible. It isn't. Her mother's voice was gentle. He goes to work. And he goes home. Brenda blinked. That's it. As far as anybody knows. She looked between her parents, waiting for more. There wasn't any. No hidden explanation. No secret second family. No dramatic revelation. Just a man moving through life alone. The tears came before she realized they would. Oh my God. Her mother immediately moved beside her. Sweetheart. This wasn't supposed to happen. The words emerged broken. Brenda covered her face. This wasn't supposed to happen. She heard her father shift uncomfortably. Neither parent interrupted. She cried harder. Years of carefully controlled regret finally breaking free. He was supposed to have a family. Her voice shook. He was supposed to be happy. Nobody corrected her. Because everyone in the room had once expected the same thing. They were plans, her father said quietly. You were both kids. We were married. The response came instantly. They weren't dreams. We had plans. The old shame returned with familiar force. She remembered late nights at the kitchen table. Textbooks spread everywhere. Sam coming home exhausted after overtime. Smiling anyway. Always smiling. They'd been a team. Her education wasn't supposed to belong to her. It was supposed to belong to them. The future wasn't supposed to belong to her. It was supposed to belong to them. Somewhere along the way she'd lost sight of that. Not intentionally. Not maliciously. Perhaps that made it worse. She remembered opening the divorce papers. Remembered reading the words marital abandonment. Remembered the moment she stopped being angry and started understanding. The document hadn't accused her of cheating. Hadn't accused her of betrayal. Just abandonment. A simpler word. A more accurate one. She'd abandoned the marriage slowly enough that she never noticed. Sam had noticed. Every day. Every unanswered text. Every missed call. Every forgotten conversation. Every promise to call later. Every later that never came. The realization still made her sick. I tried to talk to him. Her mother nodded. We know. He wouldn't answer. He was hurt. Hurt. Brenda laughed bitterly through her tears. I destroyed him. No. Her father's voice was firm. Brenda looked up. You made mistakes. You made serious mistakes. His expression softened. But Samuel made choices afterward too. She fell silent. Part of her wanted to reject that immediately. Another part knew he wasn't entirely wrong. People had tried to help Sam. Apparently for years. He'd pushed them away. Still, none of it would have happened if she hadn't failed him first. A terrible thought surfaced. What if he still hates me? Her mother smiled sadly. I doubt he spends much time thinking about hate. The answer hurt more than expected. Because she understood exactly what it meant. Hate required emotional energy. The opposite of love wasn't hate. It was absence, irrelevance, being forgotten. Later that night Brenda lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sleep wasn't coming. The conversation replayed endlessly. A decade. 10 years. 10 entire years. She imagined Sam alone in that house. Working. Eating dinner. Watching television. Repeating the cycle. Surviving instead of living. The image made her chest ache. Finally she sat up. She already knew what she was going to do. It was probably a terrible idea. An unfair idea. Complicated idea. Maybe even a selfish one. But she couldn't leave town and pretend she hadn't learned any of this. Not anymore. If Sam told her to leave him alone, she'd leave. If he slammed a door in her face, she'd accept it. If he hated her, she'd deserve it. But she needed to know, needed to see him, needed to make sure the man she'd loved since she was 15 hadn't completely disappeared behind the walls he built. Brenda stared out the window into the darkness. Tomorrow she would see Sam Jacobs for the first time in 10 years. The thought terrified her. The fact that it also gave her hope terrified her even more. Chapter 3. The worst reunion in town history. Brenda spent nearly 20 minutes sitting in her parents' driveway the next morning. She wasn't procrastinating. She was strategically delaying. There was a difference. Unfortunately, even she didn't believe that. Her coffee had gone cold 15 minutes ago. The engine wasn't running. The radio was off. At some point, she'd simply become a woman sitting alone in a parked car making increasingly creative excuses. Maybe he's at work. Maybe he's out of town. Maybe he's moved. Maybe an alien abduction finally gave him a more interesting social life. The last possibility had the benefit of being extremely unlikely. Unfortunately, so was the idea that she could avoid seeing him forever. She sighed and started the engine. Half an hour later, she parked outside the small hardware store near downtown. The store itself wasn't important. Her father had genuinely asked her to pick something up. The fact that Sam occasionally shopped there had absolutely not influenced her decision. Brenda wasn't proud of how quickly she'd latched onto the possibility. The bell above the door jingled as she entered. The familiar smell of lumber, paint, and machinery greeted her. Some things never changed. The elderly cashier nodded politely. Brenda wandered the aisles longer than necessary, partly because she needed a few supplies, mostly because her courage kept trying to escape. Eventually she found what she needed: a box of screws, garden gloves, a replacement hose nozzle. Exciting adult purchases. She was heading toward the register when she froze. Someone had just entered the store. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair carrying far more gray than she remembered. The years had changed him. They hadn't changed him enough. Her heart immediately began hammering. Sam. For a moment neither of them noticed the other. Sam carried a short shopping list in one hand and walked with the casual confidence of someone who knew exactly where everything was located. The sight hit her harder than expected. There was nothing dramatic about it. No emotional music. No cinematic slow motion. Just a man buying supplies. A man she'd once expected to grow old beside. Years of memories crashed through her all at once. His first apartment. Their wedding. Movie nights. Lazy Sundays. The 1,000 ordinary moments that had once made up her entire world. Then Sam looked up. Their eyes met. Everything stopped. The color drained from his face. Brenda suddenly remembered she had planned absolutely nothing beyond finding him. Apparently her strategy had been panic and improvisation. Sam. His expression became completely unreadable. The silence stretched. 1 second. 2. 3. Brenda. The simple sound of her name in his voice nearly shattered her composure. 10 years. 10 years since she'd heard him say it. Neither moved. Neither seemed entirely sure what happened next. Finally Brenda managed a nervous smile. Hi. The response she received was a polite nod. Not hostile. Not warm. Just polite. Somehow that felt worse. You're here. Brilliant. An excellent observation. She almost wanted to kick herself. No kidding, Sam replied. To her surprise, there was a trace of dry humor in his voice. Not much. Just enough to remind her of the man she remembered. I wasn't expecting to run into you. His eyebrow lifted. We're in the same town. Fair point. The awkwardness gained momentum. Brenda suddenly understood why people practiced difficult conversations beforehand. She should have prepared something. Anything. Instead, she'd apparently arrived armed with nervous rambling. Sam shifted slightly. You look well. The comment caught her off guard. So do you. His expression suggested he didn't believe her, which honestly was fair. The silence returned. Brenda forced herself forward before she lost her nerve completely. I heard you've been doing okay. Sam stared at her. A long stare. The kind that made her wish she'd phrased things differently. Your definition of okay is generous. Brenda winced. Sorry. Another pause. Then something unexpected happened. Sam sighed. Not dramatically. Just tired. I'm not doing this in the middle of aisle 7. The statement sounded so practical that she nearly laughed. Instead she nodded quickly. Okay. Neither moved. The problem became obvious. Neither knew where exactly to stand. Or go. Or place their hands. Or exist. Finally Sam rubbed the back of his neck. You need something? The question confused her. What? A conversation. The directness surprised her. I think so. Why? The question struck home immediately. Because I still love you. Because seeing your house broke my heart. Because I never stopped regretting what I did. Because I spent 10 years wishing I could fix something I broke. Instead she said the safer truth. I heard how you've been living. Something flickered across his face. Gone almost immediately. The reaction told her she'd hit the target anyway. And, Brenda swallowed. And I was worried. For a moment she thought he might walk away. Instead he laughed. The sound contained no amusement. Worried. The word wasn't cruel. Just bewildered. As if he genuinely couldn't understand the concept. Brenda felt her chest tighten. Sam? No. His voice remained calm. That somehow made it harder. You don't get to do that. Do what? Worry. The words landed between them. Heavy. Unavoidable. Brenda couldn't even tell him he was wrong. Because part of her understood. When he needed her most, she'd disappeared. Now she wanted concern to count for something. How could it? The guilt returned with full force. I'm sorry. Sam looked away. Out one of the front windows. Anywhere but at her. Yeah. Nothing else. Just yeah. No anger. No accusation. No shouting. The acceptance felt devastating. Brenda would almost have preferred him yelling. At least that would have meant the wound was fresh. This sounded old. Scarred. Permanent. After several seconds, Sam finally looked back. You know what's funny? Before she could answer, he continued. I spent years imagining this conversation. Her heart lurched. You did. Sure. A faint smile appeared. Without humor. I imagined dramatic confrontations. Brenda felt awful immediately. I deserved those. Probably. His honesty stung. Then one day I realized I didn't actually care anymore. The words hit like a punch. Brenda physically flinched. Sam noticed. His expression immediately shifted. The smallest trace of regret appeared. Not for the statement itself. For hurting her. The realization surprised both of them. I didn't mean. It's okay. She looked down. It should. Another uncomfortable silence settled between them. Finally Sam glanced at his watch. A familiar habit. One she'd forgotten until that moment. Some tiny part of her wanted to cry over something so small. I need to get going. Panic immediately surfaced. If he left now, she might never get another chance. Can we talk sometime? Sam closed his eyes briefly. Not frustration. Exhaustion. As though he already knew this request was coming. Why? The question again. Simple. Direct. Impossible. Brenda took a shaky breath. Because honesty was long overdue. Because for 10 years I've hated what I did. His expression didn't change. Okay. She blinked. Just, okay? I know that doesn't fix anything. I know. I know I hurt you. I know. The repetition wasn't hostile. Just factual. Brenda struggled onward. I don't expect forgiveness. That finally earned a reaction. A small one. You got that years ago. She stared. What? Sam shrugged. The movement seemed strangely heavy. I forgave you a long time ago. The floor might as well have disappeared beneath her. What? I was angry. His voice remained calm. Then sad. Another shrug. Eventually I was just tired. Brenda couldn't process what she was hearing. You forgave me? Sure. The simplicity made tears sting her eyes. You never said anything. A brief smile appeared. The first genuine smile she'd seen. Small. Right. Tired. You filed for divorce. Not exactly a situation that encouraged follow-up discussions. Despite everything, a startled laugh escaped her. To her shock, Sam almost smiled again. The moment lasted only seconds. Then reality returned. Years. Distance. Damage. Everything standing between them. Sam shifted his weight. I should go. Brenda nodded reluctantly. Then surprised herself. Can I buy you lunch sometime? The question escaped before she could stop it. Both of them froze. Her face immediately grew warm. Smooth. Very smooth. At 37 years old, she'd somehow managed to sound like a nervous teenager. Sam looked equally surprised. Then, for the first time since seeing her, he seemed genuinely uncertain. Not angry. Not guarded. Just uncertain. The hesitation lasted several long seconds. Finally he sighed. Maybe. Brenda blinked. Maybe? That wasn't a no. It definitely wasn't a yes. But it wasn't a no. The realization felt absurdly victorious. I'll take maybe. That sounds like you. The comment slipped out before he could stop it. Both froze. Because it was such an old thing to say. The kind of easy observation that belonged to another life. For a split second, she saw recognition pass through his eyes. Then the wall returned. Not completely, but enough. Sam cleared his throat. Have a good weekend, Brenda. You too, Sam. He nodded once and walked away. Brenda stood motionless in the aisle long after he left. Her heart was racing. Her emotions were a disaster. The conversation had gone terribly. The conversation had gone better than she ever imagined. Somehow both things were true. Across town, Sam loaded supplies into his truck and stared at the steering wheel. He had expected many things from his weekend. Running into Brenda Jacobs had not been one of them. And the fact that he had said maybe instead of no annoyed him far more than he cared to admit. Chapter 4. Unwanted company. Sam made it exactly 36 hours before seeing Brenda again. He knew because he checked. Not intentionally. The information simply appeared in his head at the exact moment. He spotted her standing beside a produce display in Miller's Market on Monday afternoon. Some people noticed sunsets. Some people remembered birthdays. Sam apparently tracked encounters with ex-wives. An embarrassing talent. Brenda hadn't seen him yet. She was examining tomatoes with the intense concentration usually reserved for bomb disposal. Sam considered retreat. The frozen foods aisle offered a reasonable escape route. Unfortunately, he was holding a 12-pound bag of dog food and a gallon of milk. A stealthy getaway had become difficult. Brenda turned. Their eyes met. Her shoulders visibly tensed. Then she smiled nervously. Sam almost laughed. It was weirdly comforting that she seemed just as uncomfortable as he felt. Hi. Hi. They stood there. 20 years earlier, they could have spoken for hours. Now neither could manage a complete sentence. Progress was apparently slower than expected. Brenda lifted a basket slightly. Shopping. Sam looked down at the dog food. No, just collecting random household items. To his surprise, she laughed. A genuine laugh. The sound caught him off guard. For a brief moment, the years between them felt thinner. Then reality returned. Right? She said. That was a dumb question. Little bit. Another laugh. The conversation somehow became less painful. Not easy. Never easy. Just less painful. You still have that sarcasm. You say that like it's a disease. It kind of is. Sam opened his mouth to retaliate but stopped when he noticed something. A middle-aged woman standing nearby. Watching. Very obviously watching. His heart sank immediately. Mrs. Patterson. Town gossip. Retired. Dangerous. The woman's eyes bounced between Sam and Brenda, like she was witnessing international diplomacy. Brenda noticed too. Oh no. Oh yes. Mrs. Patterson abruptly appeared beside them, far faster than her age should have allowed. Brenda. Here we go. The older woman hugged Brenda before either of them could react. Then she turned toward Sam. Her smile became suspiciously cheerful. Well, isn't this nice? No, Sam said. Not really. Mrs. Patterson ignored him completely. A lifelong skill. When did you get back? Saturday, Brenda answered. And you've already run into Samuel twice? Sam closed his eyes. She knew. Of course she knew. Nothing happened in town without Mrs. Patterson learning about it. Possibly before it happened. Actually, Brenda said carefully, the town isn't very large. Mrs. Patterson looked deeply disappointed by such a sensible explanation. Interesting. Not really. Again she ignored Sam. Well, people reconnect all the time. Brenda visibly turned red. Mrs. Patterson's smile widened. Sam immediately abandoned his groceries. Good seeing you, Brenda. Sam, too late. He was already retreating. Fast. The woman called after him. Tell your mother I need that casserole recipe. I won't. He heard Brenda laughing as he escaped. The traitorous sound followed him halfway through the store. The next encounter happened because his sister was a criminal. Maybe not legally. Morally, however, the case was solid. Emily called Wednesday evening. I'm having dinner tomorrow. Congratulations. You're coming. No. You are. No. Mom's bringing dessert. No. Dad's making ribs. Sam hesitated. Keep talking. Aha. Damn it. At 6 o'clock Thursday, he parked outside Emily's house. Everything seemed normal. Children played in the yard. The grill smoked. People talked. Nothing suspicious whatsoever. The trap didn't reveal itself until 10 minutes later. The front door opened. Brenda walked inside carrying a covered dish. Sam nearly dropped his drink. His sister immediately became fascinated by absolutely anything else. The coward. Brenda looked equally shocked. What are you doing here? The question came out simultaneously. They stared. Then, despite himself, Sam laughed. Brenda did too. Emily suddenly appeared. Oh good. You found each other. Emily. The warning in his voice didn't even slow her down. What? You invited her. I invite lots of people. You invited my ex-wife. Emily shrugged. Shameless. She grew up with us. Emily. Don't Emily me. The siblings glared at one another. Brenda looked increasingly amused. Finally, Emily pointed toward them. You two act like children. We're 37. Emotionally. The accusation hit entirely too close to home. Emily grinned. Now either be civil or leave. I honestly don't care which. Then she walked away. An astonishing display of sibling betrayal. Sam sighed. Sorry. Brenda blinked. For what? My family. To his surprise, she smiled. I missed them. The confession came out softly. Unexpectedly. Sam could hear the sincerity. She looked around the yard. At familiar faces. Old friends. People who had once been part of her daily life. Something in her expression seemed sad. They were my family too. The statement landed heavily. Because it was true. His family had loved Brenda. A lot of them still did. That reality had complicated things for everyone after the divorce. You know, Brenda said. Your mother still sends me birthday cards. Sam groaned. Of course she does. Christmas cards too. Definitely of course she does. Brenda smiled. She's wonderful. She's relentless. Also true. An unexpected ease settled between them. Not comfort exactly. More like familiarity. The kind earned through years rather than conversations. They knew each other's rhythms. Even after all this time, dinner gradually pushed people together. Seats filled. Conversations merged. By a combination of bad luck, family interference, and what appeared to be divine comedy, Sam ended up beside Brenda at one of the tables. He noticed Emily watching from across the yard. She looked far too pleased with herself. Brenda followed his gaze. She's proud. She should be arrested. That earned another laugh. The sound was becoming alarmingly less painful to hear. As dinner continued, the conversation drifted naturally. Movies, books, family updates, safe subjects. Nothing dangerous. Nothing emotional. Then Brenda mentioned a recent business trip. Sam frowned. You hate flying. She blinked. A surprised smile appeared. You remembered that? The moment the words left her mouth, both realized what she'd said. Of course he remembered. He remembered everything. Just like she probably remembered 1,000 details about him. An awkward silence threatened to form. Sam escaped first. I also remember you getting motion sickness on carnival rides. That happened once. It happened 6 times. That wasn't necessary. It was a factual statement. Brenda rolled her eyes. For one brief second she looked exactly like the 18-year-old girl he'd fallen in love with. The realization hit him unexpectedly. Hard enough that he looked away. Because that path led nowhere good. The girl he'd loved no longer existed. Neither did the boy she'd married. They were different people now. Older. Wiser. More damaged. Across the table, Brenda noticed his withdrawal. She recognized it because she used to know him better than anyone. The realization carried equal parts comfort and heartbreak. The dinner continued. The evening remained pleasant. And that was somehow the problem. Nothing dramatic happened. No arguments. No accusations. No breakthroughs. Just 2 people enjoying each other's company more than they felt they should. As darkness settled over the yard, Sam found himself laughing at a story Brenda was telling. Mid-laugh he stopped. Not visibly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But he felt it. The startling realization that this was the most he'd enjoyed himself in years. The thought alone made him uneasy. Because enjoying Brenda's company had never been difficult. Trusting what came after had always been the dangerous part. When the evening finally ended, people began saying their goodbyes. Brenda headed toward her car. Sam found himself walking in the same direction. Neither spoke for several moments. Then Brenda stopped beside her vehicle. I had a good time. So did I. The honesty surprised both of them. Brenda smiled. Small. Careful. That's probably a problem. Sam laughed. A little. She nodded. Neither seemed eager to leave, which was definitely a problem. Finally Brenda looked at him. I meant what I said at the hardware store. He knew immediately what she meant. The regret. The apology. The years she'd spent carrying both. I know. She swallowed. Okay. Another silence. Not quite uncomfortable. Not quite comfortable. Something in between. Then Brenda got into her car. Sam watched her drive away. For a long moment he remained where he was, thinking, feeling things he had spent years avoiding. Across town, Emily sat on her porch with a smug expression. Her husband handed her a drink. You look pleased. I am. You manipulated 2 emotionally damaged adults. I prefer facilitated. Her husband laughed. You know they're going to figure out what you're doing. Emily took a sip. Maybe. You worried. Not even a little. Because for the first time in 10 years, Sam Jacobs had smiled and genuinely meant it. And whether he liked it or not, that felt like the beginning of something. Chapter 5. The Dog Conspiracy. Sam's peaceful Saturday morning ended at 8:12 a.m. Not because of an emergency. Not because of a phone call. Not because of any catastrophic event. It ended because someone was scratching at his front door. Sam frowned from his recliner. The scratching continued. Slow. Persistent. Deliberate. He muted the television and listened. Scratch. 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 Go away. The scratching ignored him, which admittedly narrowed the possibilities. Most people stopped when encouraged. The scratching continued. With a sigh he stood and crossed the living room. The moment he opened the door he regretted it. A muddy golden brown dog sat on his porch. The animal immediately stood. Its tail began wagging hard enough to threaten structural damage. Sam stared. The dog stared back. Neither spoke. Then the dog barked once. Absolutely not. The dog sat down again, still wagging. Sam looked around. No owner. No leash. No identification visible. Just a medium-sized mutt with floppy ears and a face that appeared permanently optimistic. A dangerous personality trait. The dog stepped forward. Sam stepped backward. The dog interpreted this as an invitation. Before he could react, it trotted into the house. Hey! The dog ignored him. It was not a real invitation. The animal continued inspecting the living room. Sam closed the front door because apparently this was his life now. For 10 years he'd successfully avoided emotional complications. Now a trespassing canine had entered the narrative. Wonderful. An hour later, Sam was driving toward town with the dog sitting happily in the passenger seat. The animal had no collar, no microchip information at the local veterinary clinic, and no apparent desire to return wherever it had come from. The receptionist smiled when Sam entered. The dog immediately greeted everyone as if it were campaigning for public office. "Oh, he's sweet. He's not mine." The receptionist laughed. "They always say that." "I'm serious." "Sure." Sam suddenly understood why innocent people demanded lawyers. After completing the paperwork, he left his contact information in case the owner surfaced. The dog followed him back outside. "See," Sam pointed. "You should stay here." The dog looked unimpressed. Then it followed him to the truck. "You're remarkably bad at listening." The tail continued wagging. Brenda's morning wasn't going much better. She had volunteered to help her mother shop for flowers. A simple task. Pleasant task. A completely non-complicated task. Then she discovered Sam standing in front of the local vet clinic arguing with a dog. The sight was so unexpected she stopped in the parking lot. For several seconds she simply watched. The dog sat patiently. Sam appeared to be losing a debate. The dog seemed aware of this fact. Brenda smiled despite herself. Some things truly couldn't be invented. Finally she approached. "Should I ask?" Sam looked up. His expression suggested he was having a difficult morning. "You can. And I've been adopted." Brenda blinked. "What?" He pointed at the dog. "This criminal broke into my house." The dog wagged proudly. Brenda laughed. The animal immediately decided she was a friend too. Within seconds it was demanding attention. "Well, he's adorable. That's how they get you." The dog rolled onto its back. Brenda gave in immediately. Sam noticed. "You're encouraging him." "Him?" "Her." Brenda looked surprised. "It's a girl." The vet checked. "Well, she's adorable. That's not the point." "It feels like the point." The dog's tail swept back and forth enthusiastically. Sam watched the interaction. Something about it felt strangely familiar. Then realization struck. Brenda had always done this. Animals, children, nervous strangers. Some people naturally made others feel welcome. Brenda had always been one of them. The memory arrived before he could stop it. And with it came an uncomfortable warmth. He pushed the thought away. Anyway, hopefully somebody claims her soon. The dog immediately leaned against his leg. Brenda's smile widened. "Looks doubtful." 3 days later, nobody had claimed the dog. Sam knew because he checked. Repeatedly. The animal had somehow taken over his house, his routine, his furniture, his backyard, his entire existence. She had also demonstrated an alarming ability to escape fenced areas, which was how he found himself jogging through town on Wednesday evening. A sentence nobody would have believed a month earlier. "Come back." The dog ignored him. Children pointed. Adults laughed. His dignity continued suffering catastrophic injuries. Then the dog spotted someone and sprinted straight toward Brenda, who happened to be leaving a bookstore. "Really?" Sam muttered. The dog reached Brenda first. The reunion looked suspiciously enthusiastic considering they'd only met once. Brenda laughed and knelt down. "There you are." The dog spun in excited circles. Sam finally caught up, breathing harder than he wanted to admit. "Traitor." The dog barked happily. Brenda stood. "She's cute. You're part of the problem." "What problem?" "She likes you." The words escaped before he thought about them. Brenda's smile softened. For a brief moment something flickered between them. Something warm. Something dangerous. Then the dog jumped up and nearly knocked Sam over. The moment vanished. "Okay," he said. "Definitely a traitor." Brenda laughed. The sound came more easily now. Neither seemed to notice. "So what's her name?" "I haven't named her." That earned a skeptical look. "You've had her 4 days. I'm not keeping her." I'm not." "Sam." "What?" "You bought her a red leash." He froze. Brenda folded her arms. "You bought her toys too, didn't you?" "Maybe. A bed." He looked away. Brenda burst out laughing. "Amazing." The dog barked as if contributing to the conversation. "Don't encourage her." Both females ignored him. Later that evening they ended up sharing a bench in the town square. Entirely by accident. Mostly. The dog lay between them. Happy. Victorious. Possibly scheming. The sunset painted the buildings gold. For a while neither spoke. The silence felt different now. Less strained. Not easy. Never easy. But no longer sharp. Brenda scratched behind the dog's ears. "I forgot you liked dogs." Sam looked down. "I always liked dogs." "No. You love dogs." A faint smile appeared despite his efforts. "When I was 8, I tried convincing my parents to let me have 6. Brenda laughed. 6. "I had a business plan." "Of course you did. It was solid." "I'm sure it was." For some reason the conversation felt unexpectedly comfortable. Not because of the dog. Not entirely. Because they were discussing things untouched by the divorce. Old memories without pain attached. Pieces of themselves that still existed. The realization felt strange. Brenda glanced toward him. The years showed more clearly this close. The gray in his hair, the deepening lines near his eyes, signs of a life lived, a life she hadn't witnessed. A sudden sadness washed through her. Not guilt this time, loss. The quiet recognition of everything they'd missed. Sam noticed her expression. What? She hesitated, then decided honesty was safer. I was just thinking. Dangerous hobby. She smiled. It really is. What were you thinking? Brenda looked down at the dog, gathering courage. I was thinking that I don't actually know who you are anymore. The statement lingered. Sam considered it, then nodded slowly. Same. There was no accusation in it. Only truth. They'd spent years carrying memories of each other. But memories weren't people. People changed. The realization should have felt discouraging. Instead it felt oddly hopeful. Because maybe they weren't trapped inside old mistakes. Maybe they could simply learn each other again. The thought scared Brenda more than she wanted to admit. Beside her, Sam stared at the dog. Then at the sunset. Then at the woman sitting next to him. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to tomorrow. The realization arrived quietly, without permission, and that frightened him far more than the dog ever could. Meanwhile, the dog stretched contentedly between them, satisfied with the progress of her elaborate and entirely unofficial matchmaking operation. Chapter 6, Things Left Unsaid. Sam had spent 10 years avoiding difficult conversations. It turned out they were still capable of finding him. He realized this on a Thursday evening while sitting on his back porch with a dog asleep across his feet and Brenda sitting in a lawn chair 3 feet away. 3 feet. Not far enough for comfort. Not close enough to ignore. The dog, still unnamed according to Sam and very much named Daisy according to everyone else, had become a problem. Specifically, she had become their problem. Nobody ever claimed her. Nobody came looking. Nobody answered the notices. After 3 weeks, the entire town had simply accepted that Sam now owned a dog. Including the dog. Especially the dog. You know, Brenda said, sipping a bottle of water. Everyone calls her Daisy. Everyone is wrong. The dog's tail thumped lazily. You bought her a name tag. Sam frowned. That was not my decision. Your mother ordered it. Exactly. You put it on her. She looked sad. Brenda laughed. The sound still did strange things to him. Not painful things anymore. Just unfamiliar things. The laughter faded. Quiet settled around them. The summer air carried the sound of distant traffic and chirping insects. For a while neither spoke. Daisy snored. The traitor. Finally Brenda stared out at the yard. You've done more with this place. Sam looked around. She wasn't wrong. The yard still wasn't impressive. But flower beds had returned. The porch had been painted. A few repairs had been finished. Small things. Nothing dramatic. I guess. You hated gardening. I still hate gardening. Brenda smiled. But you planted flowers. Sam followed her gaze. The flower bed beside the porch wasn't particularly impressive. A little uneven. Definitely amateur. But alive. Bright. Colorful. They looked empty, he said. The words slipped out before he thought about them. Brenda's smile faded slightly, because they both knew they weren't talking entirely about flowers. The silence stretched. Not awkward. Heavy. Eventually Brenda took a slow breath. Can I ask you something? Sam already knew he wasn't going to like it. Probably. Will I regret it? Definitely. For a moment she looked uncertain. Then she asked anyway. When did you stop waiting for me? The question landed softly. That somehow made it hurt more. Sam stared into the yard. A younger version of himself flashed through his mind. A newly married man sitting beside a phone. Checking messages. Making excuses. Trying not to panic. Trying not to see what was happening. I don't know. The answer surprised him. Because it was truthful. I kept moving the line. Brenda looked down. Sam continued. At first it was a week. His voice remained calm. Detached. As though he were discussing somebody else's memories. Then it was 2 weeks. Brenda didn't interrupt. Then a month. He rubbed one hand across his jaw. Every time something felt wrong, I'd tell myself you were busy. The shame on Brenda's face was immediate. Painful. Sam almost stopped. Almost. But 10 years of unspoken truth had weight. And he was suddenly tired of carrying it alone. You know the worst part? Brenda swallowed. No. It wasn't the silence. Her eyes lifted to his. It wasn't wondering if you still loved me. She looked confused. What was it? Sam laughed quietly. Without humor. The hope. Understanding slowly spread across her face. And with it came heartbreak. Every day I'd convince myself things were going back to normal. His gaze remained fixed on the yard. I'd get one text. His voice softened. Miss you. A lump formed in Brenda's throat. She remembered sending those messages. Quick. Careless. Thinking they were enough. Thinking tomorrow she'd have more time. There was always a tomorrow. The words felt almost reflective. Not angry. Just sad. Then eventually you stopped answering those too. Brenda closed her eyes. The memories hurt now. Because she finally understood what they looked like from the other side. I didn't see it. The admission came quietly. I know. The response surprised her. She looked up. Sam wasn't angry. He wasn't accusing her. He simply sounded tired. I know you didn't. That somehow felt worse. If I thought you were trying to hurt me. He paused. Honestly, that would have made more sense. Brenda flinched. Sam regretted it immediately. Not because it wasn't true. Because she looked devastated. I'm sorry. She shook her head. No. Her voice broke slightly. No, you don't get to apologize for that. The old guilt she'd carried for years suddenly felt fresh. I should have noticed. Sam said nothing. How did I not notice? Still silence. Brenda laughed bitterly. I built an entire career around understanding people. The irony hurt. And I somehow didn't notice I was losing my husband. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Sam did something unexpected. He answered. Because you were happy. She blinked. What? You were building the life you'd worked for. His voice remained steady. The career. The opportunities. Everything. Brenda stared. But we were building it. We were. Pause. Until we weren't. The simple truth sat heavily between them. No dramatic betrayal. No affair. No screaming matches. Just two people slowly drifting into different worlds. One noticing. One failing to notice. The tragedy of it somehow felt larger than anger. Brenda looked away. Tears threatened again. I'm so sorry, Sam. The words sounded inadequate immediately. Pathetic. Small. She'd said them before. Thought them 1,000 times. They still weren't enough. I know. She laughed bitterly. That's becoming your favorite phrase. A faint smile appeared. Maybe. Brenda studied his face. The smile faded. What happened after? Sam knew what she meant. After the divorce. After the papers. After everything broke. He leaned back. Thinking. Choosing honesty. For once. I stopped caring about things. The admission felt strange. Simple. Brutally simple. The house. He gestured around them. My hobbies. He shrugged. People. Brenda's heart sank. Sam continued before she could speak. Not because I hated anyone. He looked down at Daisy. The dog had somehow rolled upside down. Asleep. Ridiculous. I was just exhausted. His voice softened. When somebody matters that much. A long pause. It's hard to convince yourself anybody else is worth the risk. Brenda physically looked away. The words felt too personal. Too revealing. And yet there they were. The most honest thing he'd said to her since she'd come back. Eventually she gathered enough courage to ask the question she'd been avoiding. Did you ever love anyone after me? The answer came instantly. No. Brenda's chest tightened. Not because she felt special. Because she felt terrible. What about dates? A few. A few. They were nice. He shrugged. They deserved better. Brenda looked down. Because she already knew exactly what he meant. Showing up physically didn't mean your heart arrived too. She knew that lesson better than most. Neither did I. Sam looked toward her. What? She took a shaky breath. Date anybody seriously. The confession sounded vulnerable. Embarrassing. Painfully honest. I tried. A weak smile appeared. A lot of well-meaning friends encouraged me. Sam snorted. Sounds familiar. That earned a genuine laugh. Brief, but real. Then Brenda looked directly at him. No one ever felt right. The words hung in the air. Dangerous. Unavoidable. Sam understood exactly what she meant. Because the same truth had shaped both their lives. Neither seemed eager to touch that particular subject. For obvious reasons. Daisy solved the problem. The dog suddenly woke up. Stretched. Then climbed directly into Brenda's lap despite being much too large for such behavior. Brenda laughed. Sam shook his head. She's defective. I think she's sweet. I think she's plotting something. The dog licked Brenda's face. Further evidence. The laughter lingered longer this time. Comfortable. Warm. Real. As the sun slowly dipped below the horizon, neither seemed eager to leave. The difficult conversation was over. Not fixed. Never fixed. Some wounds became scars. They didn't disappear. But for the first time in 10 years, Sam felt like someone finally understood what those months had been like. And for the first time in 10 years, Brenda wasn't imagining his pain. She'd finally heard it. The real thing. Not the version she'd constructed from guilt and regret. The truth. And somehow, after all of that honesty, sitting beside him felt easier than it had before. That realization scared both of them. For very different reasons. Chapter 7. Learning to be new people. The strangest part, Brenda decided, was how normal it started to feel. Not getting back together. That definitely wasn't normal. Spending time together. Talking. Laughing. Existing in the same space without either of them immediately wanting to escape. That part slowly became normal. Which was why she found herself helping Sam install a new mailbox on a sunny Saturday morning. A sentence that would have sounded ridiculous 2 months earlier. You've got it crooked. It is not crooked. It's leaning. It's artistic. Brenda folded her arms. Mailboxes shouldn't be artistic. Sam stepped back and squinted at his work. The mailbox was, in fact, crooked. Noticeably, you've become judgmental. I've become capable of seeing. The smile he failed to suppress made her chest tighten in a way she was trying very hard not to analyze. Daisy barked from the yard, apparently taking Brenda's side. ET2, Daisy? The dog wagged. Traitor. Brenda laughed. Sam shook his head. You two have formed a coalition. We have demands. I'm afraid to ask. More treats. Daisy barked again. See, Brenda said. She's clearly in agreement. For a moment they simply smiled at one another. The ease of it still surprised her. Not because things were fixed. Because they weren't. They never would be, completely. There would always be things they regretted. Things they wished had been different. History didn't disappear because people wanted it to. But somewhere along the way, they had stopped treating each conversation like walking through a minefield. That mattered. More than either wanted to admit. Across town, Emily watched them from inside her car. Her husband looked over. Are we spying? We are observing. It looks like spying. Emily lowered the binoculars. Fine, it's spying. You're lucky they're too distracted to notice. They're installing a mailbox. You're watching people install a mailbox. It's important. Her husband laughed. You're unbelievable. No, I'm right. She pointed dramatically. Look at them. I am. They don't even realize what's happening. Her husband squinted. They appear to be arguing about mailbox alignment. Exactly. That doesn't clarify anything. Emily sighed. Men could be so dense. They enjoy being around each other. Oh, exactly. Her husband considered this. You know they're both adults. They absolutely are not. Later that afternoon, Sam found himself in a situation that would have horrified him 6 months ago. He was having lunch with people. Voluntarily. At a restaurant. Around a table. Like some sort of functioning member of society. The realization continued to feel suspicious. His sister sat across from him looking entirely too pleased. His parents sat nearby. Brenda occupied the seat beside him. Daisy slept beneath the table on the outdoor patio. Everyone had accepted her presence, including restaurant staff. This town had very low standards. The conversation drifted naturally. Stories, news, family updates. The sort of ordinary interaction Sam had spent years avoiding. At one point his mother smiled at him. A soft smile. Proud. The expression caught him off guard. What? His mother shook her head. Nothing. That wasn't a nothing face. She glanced at Brenda before looking back. No. The answer was suspiciously quick. His father snorted. Emily nearly choked on her drink. Sam immediately became concerned. What? Nope, Emily said. What? Nope. Emily. She grinned. You've been smiling more. The statement startled him. Because he realized she was right. Not constantly. Not dramatically. But more. Enough for people to notice. Enough for his family to notice. The realization felt strangely emotional. He looked away. Uncomfortable. Brenda quietly saved him. You know, that's actually true. Traitor. She smiled. A little. Warmly. It's nice. Something about hearing it from her felt different. Dangerous. Meaningful. He changed the subject immediately. A survival instinct. The conversation moved on. But the comment remained, lingering quietly in the back of his mind. That evening, after everyone went home, Brenda sat on Sam's porch. The summer air was beginning to cool. Daisy occupied half the space between them. As usual, their conversations had developed a rhythm. Sometimes serious, sometimes stupid, sometimes both. Tonight was quiet, comfortable. Eventually Brenda looked toward him. Can I tell you something? Sam recognized the tone. Dangerous territory. Probably. She rolled her eyes. One day you're going to answer normally. No, I won't. Fair enough. Brenda took a breath. I almost transferred again. The statement surprised him. What? A few years ago. She looked out toward the yard. A really good opportunity came up. Sam waited. I would have doubled my salary. Now he was genuinely confused. Why didn't you take it? The answer took a moment. When it came, it was quiet. I was tired. He said nothing. Brenda continued. I spent so many years chasing promotions. A sad smile touched her lips. Then one day I got everything I thought I wanted. The statement felt familiar somehow. I looked around my apartment and realized I'd built a life nobody shared. Sam stared into the distance. Because he knew exactly what that felt like. Different reasons. Same destination. You know what's funny? She asked. Probably not. A laugh escaped her. Small. Affectionate. The kind that made him look away before he thought about why. I used to think success would solve everything. It doesn't. No. She shook her head. It really doesn't. The silence that followed wasn't sad. Just thoughtful. Eventually Sam spoke. I started fishing again. Brenda looked surprised. What? I used to go all the time. She nodded. I remember. My brother dragged me out a few weeks ago. The memory made him smile despite himself. I forgot I actually enjoyed it. Brenda smiled. That's good. I think so. felt ridiculous, talking about fishing, talking about promotions, talking about ordinary life. Yet somehow those conversations mattered, because they weren't discussing the divorce, or regret, or guilt. They were simply learning who the other person had become. New people, separate from the past. The realization landed softly, but it stayed. That night, long after Brenda left, Sam sat alone in his living room. Daisy snored nearby. The house felt different now. Lived in. Warmer. Not because Brenda had fixed anything. Because she hadn't. Nobody could restore 10 lost years. But she'd done something unexpected. She reminded him that there were still years left. At 37, he'd been behaving like life was already over. Like the story ended at 27. Like heartbreak had permanently closed every door after it. Yet lately he'd started doing things again. Seeing people. Going places. Laughing. Living. The thought lingered. Uncomfortable. Hopeful. Dangerous. Across town, Brenda lay awake in her childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling. She should have been happy. Things were going better than she ever imagined. Sam talked to her. Laughed with her. Trusted her more than she deserved. So why did she feel terrified? The answer arrived immediately. Because friendship had never been the problem. She'd been in love with him at 18. At 27. 37. Time hadn't helped. Distance hadn't helped. Failure certainly hadn't helped. And recently, spending time with him only seemed to make it worse. Because she wasn't falling in love with the boy she remembered. She was falling in love with the man he had become. Again. Which felt infinitely more dangerous. Because this time she understood exactly how much she could lose. Neither of them slept particularly well that night. And neither wanted to admit the same truth. Somewhere along the way, learning to be new people had created an entirely new problem. They were starting to want a future again. And neither knew what to do about it. Chapter 8. Not the same promise. The problem with hope, Sam discovered, was that once it returned, it became impossible to ignore. For years he'd lived without it. It was actually pretty manageable. Wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. No expectations meant no disappointments. Simple, safe. Then Brenda came back. Now his life contained entirely too many emotions. He deeply resented it. Unfortunately, he also liked it, which was worse, a lot worse. The realization followed him into October. The trees had begun changing. The air carried the first hints of autumn. And Sam found himself standing in a pumpkin patch beside Brenda, while Daisy attempted to steal a hay bale. This feels staged. Brenda laughed. What does? This. He gestured around them. Families wandered through rows of pumpkins. Children ran everywhere. Couples held hands. It looked like the brochure for small-town happiness. We're literally at a harvest festival. I know. You voluntarily came. I was deceived. You were invited. Same thing. Her smile widened. The sight hit him unexpectedly. Lately, everything about her seemed capable of doing that. The way she laughed. The way she tilted her head when listening. The way she still talked with her hands whenever she got excited about something. Some habits never changed. Others had. She carried herself differently now. More confidence. More certainty. Less fear. The girl he'd married had become a remarkable woman. The realization shouldn't have surprised him. But it did. Because he'd spent 10 years remembering who she was. Not noticing who she'd become. A sudden shout interrupted his thoughts. Daisy had escaped. Again. The dog sprinted toward a nearby pond. Seriously. Sam started after her. Brenda followed, laughing. She's excited. She's stupid. She can hear you. Good. Daisy ignored both opinions and launched herself directly into muddy water. Tremendous splash followed. Several children cheered. One parent applauded. Betrayal everywhere. The dog emerged soaked and triumphant. Then immediately sprinted back toward them. Oh no. Sam knew exactly what was coming. Brenda knew too. Neither moved quickly enough. Daisy reached them and shook. Water. Mud. Leaves. Chaos. Everywhere. Brenda squealed. Sam closed his eyes. The nearby children found this hilarious. Traitors. Every last one. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Brenda looked at him. Mud decorated her jacket. Leaves sat tangled in her hair. She looked ridiculous. Beautiful. Happy. Alive. The laugh escaped before he could stop it. Brenda stared. Then burst out laughing too. Not polite laughter. Not controlled laughter. The kind that stole your breath. The kind that left your stomach hurting. People glanced over. Neither cared. For several wonderful seconds, they simply laughed together. The simplicity of it struck him. No guilt. No pain. No history. Just laughter. When it finally faded, something remained. Something warmer. Something deeper. Brenda seemed to feel it too. The smile slowly disappeared. Not from sadness. From awareness. They were suddenly looking at one another. Really looking. The world around them seemed quieter somehow. Neither spoke. Neither knew how. Fortunately, life solved that problem immediately. Sam's phone rang. He almost ignored it. Then he saw his brother's name. Hey! The response came fast. Too fast. Sam's expression changed immediately. Brenda felt her stomach tighten. What happened? A long pause. Then another. Finally Sam spoke. I'm on my way. He ended the call. Brenda's heart was racing. What is it? My dad. The words came out tight. He collapsed. Everything else disappeared. The hospital was 2 towns over. The longest drive of Sam's life. Brenda rode beside him. Silent. Steady. Whenever panic threatened to surface, he tightened his grip on the steering wheel and kept driving. His father. The man who taught him to work, to fix things, to endure. The man who never stopped showing up. The thought of losing him felt unbearable. By the time they arrived, the rest of the family was already there. Emily spotted them first. Her eyes were red, but she managed to smile. He's okay. Sam physically sagged. The relief was so immediate he nearly lost his balance. What happened? Minor heart attack. Emily wiped her eyes. The doctors caught it quickly. Relief, fear, exhaustion. Everything collided at once. Sam sat down heavily. The adrenaline drained away, leaving him shaky, overwhelmed, human. Brenda sat beside him, not speaking, not pushing, just there. Minutes became hours, tests, updates, waiting. Eventually the doctors confirmed what everyone desperately wanted to hear. His father would recover. Lifestyle changes, monitoring, a little less stubbornness, no miracles required, just time. The family celebrated accordingly, by arguing over who would force him to follow medical advice. A beloved tradition. Late that evening, after visiting hours ended, Sam stepped outside. Cool air greeted him. Darkness stretched across the parking lot. For the first time all day he was alone, or almost alone. The door opened behind him. Brenda, of course. You okay? Sam looked toward the sky, thinking, feeling, trying to sort through all of it. No. The honesty surprised both of them. I was terrified. Brenda didn't offer comfort, didn't tell him everything would be fine, just listened, which somehow helped more. I know. A long silence followed. Then Sam laughed softly, without humor. You know what's weird? What? I kept thinking about losing him. His gaze remained fixed on the darkness, and all I could think was how much time gets wasted. Brenda said nothing, because she knew where this was going. We think we have forever. His voice had grown quiet. We make plans. A pause. We assume there'll always be another conversation. Brenda closed her eyes. Emotion tightened her chest, because that lesson had shaped both their lives. Sam finally looked at her. Really looked. The moment felt important, terrifying, necessary. I don't want to waste any more time. Brenda's heartbeat accelerated. Neither moved, neither breathed. Then Sam said the words she'd spent years wanting and fearing. I still love you. The world stopped, just for a second. Brenda felt tears immediately. Not sadness, relief, hope, disbelief, everything at once. I know. The response surprised him. A watery laugh escaped her. I never stopped loving you either. For a moment neither spoke. Years stood between them. Mistakes, regrets, pain, growth, a lifetime. Finally Sam shook his head. We can't go back. No. The answer came instantly. Firm, certain. No, we can't. They both understood. The old marriage was gone. The people who created it were gone too. 18-year-old promises wouldn't save them. They needed something new, something honest, something stronger. I don't want what we had. Brenda smiled through her tears. Neither do I. The statement might have sounded cruel to anyone else. To them, it wasn't. What they had once possessed had been real, beautiful, but fragile. Built by 2 young people who thought love alone could solve everything. Now they knew better. Sam stepped closer. Not much, just enough. We'd have to start over. Brenda laughed shakily. At 37? Seems unfair. A little. A silence. Warm this time. Hopeful. Then Brenda held out her hand. Hi. Sam stared. Confused. Amused. Hi. She nodded. A smile growing. Hi. I'm Brenda. The absurdity finally broke through. Sam laughed. A real laugh. The kind she'd missed for years. She joined him. Eventually he took her hand. I'm Sam. Nice to meet you. Likewise. Their fingers remained intertwined. Neither seemed eager to let go. For the first time in a very long time, the future felt uncertain. Not frightening. Exciting. And that made all the difference. Epilogue: a better future than planned. 3 years later. Sam stood in his backyard holding a garden hose and questioning every decision that had led him here. Don't spray me. Brenda pointed a warning finger. You know I'll win. You sound very confident. I am. Daisy, now older but no less troublesome, barked encouragement. To nobody's surprise, the dog supported chaos. Children's laughter drifted across the yard. Family filled the house. Friends crowded the patio. Life existed everywhere. The kind of life Sam once believed he'd lost forever. Brenda walked over and bumped her shoulder against his. A familiar gesture. Comfortable. Easy. Home. You thinking again? Dangerous hobby. She smiled. Still, some things never changed. He looked around, at the people he loved, at the home they had rebuilt together. Not restored, rebuilt. Completely different thing. Their second marriage wasn't a continuation of the first. It was stronger, healthier, built by two people who finally understood that relationships required attention, effort, and choosing each other every day. The future they'd planned at 18 never happened. And strangely enough, Sam no longer regretted that. Because the future they had now was better. Not because it was perfect, because it was real. Brenda slipped her hand into his. Sam squeezed it gently. Then Daisy spotted a squirrel and immediately charged after it, knocking over a lawn chair. Chaos erupted. Children cheered. Adults laughed. Brenda groaned. Sam smiled. Some futures were worth waiting for.